Welcome to this special analyst edition of CX Wise, where we share wisdom, insights, stories, and expertise from the world of customer experience. I'm your host, Nate Bennett, and you're about to hear real-world experiences and practical advice that will elevate your CX game, no matter your title, no matter your industry. So, without further ado, let's get wise. My guest today is Lou Reinemann. He's the principal analyst at IDC for Voice of the Customer and Customer Success. Lou's focus areas include strategies and technologies that improve awareness and understanding of customers' actions, expectations, and sentiment for new products and within the customer journey. And Lou, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule coming to us from Source 24, the Analyst Summit at Sprinklr HQ in New York City. Lou, how are you? How's your day been going?
I am well, thank you. So great to be here. Thanks, Nate, for everything. It's a wonderful studio here in New York. Love being here. Been here for 2 days now. It's been a great conference. Met some super people, great messaging. Love to talk about it, share my experiences with anybody. But it's been great. Very good.
Absolutely. Lou, I want to jump right in. For those of us who haven't been able to attend the summit, I'm wondering what are some key takeaways that have really popped in your brain? What's really excited you from these past couple of days?
Yeah, so we got to meet, most of the executive team. I think what really comes across for me is such a solid message that Sprinklr has coming to market today. There's a great platform that has been in place for some time, and there's some really good traction coming out. A lot of good customer reference examples. Loved meeting the customers, talking with them, understanding really the benefits that they're getting out of the Sprinklr solution, and getting the chance to really dig in a lot deeper in the Sprinklr solution itself and understanding what really are the differentiators. I think that was probably my biggest takeaway was it's a tough market to be in. There's a lot of players that are in it today. And honestly, there's a lot that are saying a lot of the same kind of keywords, buzzwords. And as a customer today, a buyer, it's challenging trying to understand, what is really going to be impactful for me. So I think, spending the time here and understanding that solution and the messaging from Sprinklr is really good. And understanding, the unification is probably the key thing for the data, really getting to be able to break those silos down, share that data across an organization. That's probably the number one thing to understand about what is needed in this special market today to really improve CX. The expectations customers have are so high and they're getting higher every day. And so a Sprinklr solution is one that I think really meets those needs and is growing with the customers today. So really excited to spend the time here and understand that.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing up my favorite topic to discuss with you, data. You have said that the customer feedback data used to be very structured, but today there's been an explosion in unstructured data. Can you unpack that for our audience and maybe give us a sense of why that is and what that looks like?
Yeah, so structured data is data that comes from things like surveys and forms where traditionally an email would go out, or even letters where you're getting questions answered and you have a very set answer base to choose from, A, B, or C, or fill in the blank. And that's all very structured data. It can be put into a spreadsheet or a table and analyzed. But with the advent of the web and social media and product review sites, a lot of customers are now talking to one another instead of directly to a brand, or they're talking to a brand through specific channels, but they're doing it in a very open kind of a way. They're conversing, and that's unstructured data. It's not set on any particular topic. The data could appear in any form. It could have sentiment, tonality to it. There's a lot of different ways of looking at the data, whether it's good data, accurate data, but that's what we call the unstructured data. And it appears mostly social media sites, product review sites, community forums, anywhere someone can go and actually talk either to another prospect or another customer or to the brand. Often it's a one-to-many as opposed to a one-to-one type of a channel. And a lot of really good customer information and feedback could be contained in a lot of those unstructured messages. And so brands are now, if they're really evolving their CX programs, they really need to listen to those different channels. They need to understand what their customers, their prospects are saying to one another. They need to analyze it for tonality and sentiment. And then they need to try to make use of it, get insights out of it. What's it telling me about the experiences the customers are getting, because they're sharing all of that information with other customers. So we need to listen to it, and then we need to act on it and improve our experiences, improve our products, improve our services. But so often there can be a little bit of a not a delay, but just a period of time to kind of get the organization up to speed on how do we make use of this data? How do we get the insights, the analytics out of it? And so tools like Sprinklr are there to help do that. They'll, take that capability, they'll take all that data coming in from all those different channels and produce logical insights out of it that then can be acted on by the CX practitioners in an organization. So great fit, great timing for all this technology. AI is supercharging the ability to not just selectively look at, oh, let me look at every 10th message in a product review site or every 100th message. With the advent of AI, you can actually take all of that data and look at every piece of data that's out there and have the AI do summaries for you, give you insights on what's actionable items to try to improve different things about the insights that are coming back. And can make an enormous difference in a customer experience for a company that's ready to do that with their products and services.
And I really want to jump in to the applications and trends for AI and Gen AI as it relates to voice of the customer. But I want to unpack a couple more things about data first that I think are interesting. So you talk about the three categories of data: direct data, indirect data, and inferred data.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you could expound on each one of those, and then we'll use that as a jumping point to talk about Gen AI.
Sure. So as a VOC or CX program matures, often they will start out with the direct data. So that's a survey, it's a phone call, it's a one-to-one type of a relationship where the data is coming directly back to the brand about the products or services. The indirect data is more on the product review sites, the community forums. That's the unstructured data. So the indirect data is not coming to the brand, but it's out there about the brand. And so they need to go find it, listen to it, analyze it, get some insights out of it. The inferred data is where data can actually be tracked for sentiment, tonality, reactions of customers, inferred from data such as mouse clicks. A good example is classic, you're filling out a big form or trying to create a new account and you get to that end and the button doesn't work. And you pick, right? Everybody knows mouse rage, click rage. So it's exactly right. And so you can understand rage clicks are a way of understanding tonality. It's a sentiment, right? I'm angry, I'm frustrated. That's just one example. You can look at body language. You could look at eye movement. You can look at tracking of people in stores if they get agitated and move from one line to another. These are all different ways of inferring the different sentiment or feedback from a customer as to how they're perceiving an experience. So I look at the market that's the data that a CX practitioner should be looking at if they're really doing a comprehensive CX or VOC type of a practitioner or program, is looking at that direct, the indirect, and all the inferred data. The inferred data is a relatively new area. It's pros and cons, right? Not a lot of people like to be captured in, without them knowing for sure. And even when they are, it's a little, kind of scary because they're like, well, I don't know where this information is going to be used. They clearly want to understand when it's happening, and then, it kind of goes from there. So I think there's value in the data coming from the inferred side, but it's going to take a little while for it to be accepted and used. The benefit is that, well, if I can get feedback and sentiment on the experience behavior from inferred data and even the unstructured or indirect data, then maybe I don't need to do as many surveys. And wouldn't it be nice if we all could do a few less surveys every day, right?
So there's no shortage of ways to collect data, and it seems like most or many organizations and big brands are doing those things, either traditionally or non-traditionally. But then the problem becomes, well, I've got this abundance of data. What then do I do with it? How do I gain insights and then take action on those insights? And I'm wondering what Gen AI is doing to help us achieve those actions from the insights that are being collected by the data, and how is it improving customer experience?
Yeah, so I look at VOC as three different kind of buckets. One is you gather the data, you listen. And so for Gen AI, listening is part of, again, surveys are a good example. Gen AI could be so useful to generate new surveys, different nuances. If you think about surveys, the more that we can personalize a survey, the better the chance that end customer is probably going to respond to it because they feel like it's a one-to-one engagement with that brand, a direct engagement. And so if Gen AI can help accelerate the personalization of the surveys out to the different customers, that should be a very good thing, and we'll see a higher hit rate. Traditionally, surveys run in the 3, 4, 5, 6% response rate, very low. doesn't really tell you what the rest of the customers may be talking about. So if we can use Gen AI to improve that personalization, improve the tonality, the sentiment, the timing even of when should I send the survey versus when other CX engagements are happening with that particular customer, that all should lead to better engagement, better feedback in the gathering of the data from the customer. In the second phase, you take the data and then you analyze it. You bring it together, clean the data, you unify it, and then you analyze it for insights to say, well, the customer's happy, how long are they taking to do these different journeys? And we can use Gen AI to accelerate that. We can say basically, again, instead of sampling data, because if I do it manually, I'll never be able to look at a full sample size, or a full survey size. But instead of sampling, I can use Gen AI to actually look at the entire data set. And so the accuracy is going to be much better by the ability to look at the entire data set. The Gen AI then also gives me better insights. It can even find correlations that I may not have even thought to look for between customer in this particular geo going to this particular store and finding a particular color of product. The Gen AI can look at a lot more variations in the data than I ever could faster and be able to come up with correlations that might lead to better sales campaigns, better marketing campaigns, to be able to better, again, address the different needs of those users there for better revenue generation, retention for customers, et cetera. So on the analytics side, and then on the acting side, that third part of kind of the VOC programs, the Gen AI is wonderful for creating, again, that personalized content. If I want to send a follow-up email to a thank you to a customer, I can do it with Gen AI, come up with 3 different tones, and then send whatever I think is the right message out to a particular customer. So it's all kind of moving to this personalization at a higher and higher level. The expectations are growing. The vendors are wanting to put out more personalized messaging to the customers to treat them better. And all in there is also a feedback loop where if a customer is going to be conversing with a brand, it's nice if you can close the loop with them and say, hey, well, did you use my feedback? What did you think of, my survey information I gave back? And Gen AI can help with all of that. Again, being able to address every different customer that's out there because it can help automate a lot of the tasks that take a lot of time on those agents, those marketers that are doing a lot of the work in those companies. Because it can accelerate it, it can automate it, it can improve, again, the personalization for it. So there's so many levels of it at the different players that are engaging with customers. I haven't even mentioned the sales side, but even looking at salespeople connecting with customers, just the correspondence, the timing, all of that could be assisted by AI and the Gen AI to make those communications much better, much more personalized, timing better, and it just leads to much better overall customer experience.
I know that Raji talked about conversational customer experience as kind of the next benchmark in development, and there's a lot of excitement around that. I'm wondering if that conversational customer experience impacts, or how does it overlap with the voice of the customer? Do you see any correlation there?
Oh, totally. Yeah. So the conversational is really it's the two sides. It's whether it's between a bot or an agent, a brand in some way. And so it's a conversation. And that's really where the market is going. Instead of menu clicks and pull downs and interfaces, we want to have conversations. And so digital assistants, agent assistants, digital twins are one way of thinking about having an agent that I can communicate with and actually have a conversation with, to do things like ordering online or querying for research on different products that might be interested in. I can open up a communication with one of these agents, again, whether it's an AI agent or an actual person or a bot, and have a conversation, a real-time, valuable conversation in context, potentially even with an agent that knows me. They know my history, they know my personal likes and dislikes, and I can have a conversation and actually gain information about products that I want to look for. And that's all supported by the AI and the Gen AI on the back end. And, there's a lot of work today, a lot of, I think, different technologies that are coming into play that people talk about accuracies and they talk about hallucinations and things. And I think we're in this wonderful area where the technology is very new. We're trying to find the right fits for it and the value. And the conversation, I think, is really going to be an interesting one to look at over the next 3 to 5 years or so, as maybe that new interface. It's really that new place where we start engaging with a brand, replacing all that screen time and those keyboard clicks and that interfacing time and saying, let me do it all through a conversation. It remembers everything that we've had for history. It knows me. I can converse with my tonality. I can change my temper if I get frustrated with it. It should be able to understand that as all. So there's a whole nother layer, I think, of the engagement that's going to be exciting to get into. evolving from this, two-dimensional screen that we've had for so many years now that we've all been used to. It's going to be moving to a much more natural conversation basis. Very exciting times.
So let's talk about a little bit about the challenges of trust and customer loyalty when it comes to AI and Gen AI. How are you seeing businesses overcome those challenges to trust and loyalty? And, when you talk about inferred data, you touched on it a little bit, like, I don't even know that data is being collected on me sometimes, and it seems a little creepy. Little
Creepy
I
is
don't
a
know,
great word
there's an
for it.
yeah, a little ick factor there, right?
Sure.
So
Yes.
how are we overcoming those challenges?
I think initially what we're doing is we're making sure there's human intervention, supervision, as some call it. And so anytime there's going to be AI intervening to create content, to put content out in the public area or engaging with a customer, there's human supervision to ensure the accuracy is where it needs to be for the content going today. That may be slowing down the development or the delivery of the content from the AI tools, but it increases the accuracy of it. You can think about any engagement where we try a new technology, we go to a kiosk and we try to order something. And if we find a poor experience where it doesn't really understand what I'm trying to do or order, or I go to a call center and I just can't find the right menu pick, I get frustrated and I'm like, well, this doesn't work. It's just not catching up with me. It doesn't understand me. And so expectations, if you have a good experience with a brand, your expectations across all of your brands then goes up a little bit. And so those other brands need to understand that and step up their game to try to make sure that they have the same kind of experiences. And so I think, in the cases where you then don't have as good an experience, you tend to shy away from going back to that experience again. If you go to a call center, you may say, well, I'm just going to go right to a person. I don't want to try the click-through numbers or the pull-down menus anymore because it didn't work for me last time. It took me too long. And I think that's the case with some of the AI implementations, is that they're stretching out a little bit too far and assuming that the answers are going to be solid enough that the customers are going to build trust and loyalty with that engagement channel. And in some cases, if it's a fairly simple engagement, that might be okay. But again, it only takes one, maybe two not so good experiences to really drive a customer to go to a different brand, especially if there are other alternatives that are fairly easy to go to. So I think brands have to be very careful to make sure that when they're rolling out these new technologies, that they do think about it from the customer side, and they really have tools that are listening to that feedback to make sure that if there is a bad experience, they jump all over it and they fix it right away. The AI is good, but again, it doesn't take much to drive someone to another, brand or something if an experience is one where it really just didn't hit the mark. And I think it will get there. But I think we're kind of in a pullback a little bit right now, where we've had a lot of movement into these new tools, new technologies. And now we're saying, well, does it fit this use case well? Does it give, very good, valuable feedback consistently here? What's my accuracy look like? And so there's a lot going on in the market today with different models to be used, the large language models, which ones are the right fit, and also trying to understand the pricing behind them all. There's a lot of movement going on around the pricing on implementing these technologies as well. So all of that has to be looked at by CX practitioners, the implementers, and what kind of tools they're using and how they bring it to their front office people with these tools to try to improve the engagements with their customers, the experiences. So to your point, I think there's a lot of supervision that still has to happen today to make sure that the customers are getting really good engagements with the customers through these different channels. But it's exciting times, and thinking about 3 to 5 years from now, where these communications, these chats are going to be much more enabled, might be a better word than automated, right? With these technologies to make them that much better, much faster. And one of the benefits I haven't even mentioned was really just alleviating a lot of mundane tasks from people on both sides, right? I could leave it to these different digital agents to do things for me, like ordering plane tickets or train tickets or different meals and things. They could learn my preferences. If I want to order dinner out, they could say, here's, 3 different places that you like to go to. Here's what specials they're having tonight. Which one would you like to order for dinner out tonight for you and the family or whatever, right? So there's a lot of help that could go on to make it easier for us on both sides. And I think that's pretty exciting.
You touched on something that made me think, like, if I am, let's role play it a little bit.
Okay.
Let's say I'm a technology buyer and I'm looking for AI or Gen AI heavily influence VOC or CX programs to have an impact on my productivity and improve personalized experiences? What are some key things that I should be considering when I'm looking for applications that bring AI and Gen AI? Because there's so much out there and they continue to change and evolve so rapidly. What should I be looking out for?
Yeah, one of the biggest that I hear today is flexibility. That would be the key word. And so a solution needs to have an openness to be able to use whatever model, LLM, AI model, would be appropriate for whatever function or use case that I'm looking to address with that particular technology. So flexibility. So meaning I could use an out-of-the-box solution. I could train my own solution in-house if I have certain proprietary data that I want to be very careful about, confidential data. I could use open source. And I could decide 6 months down the road that if it's not quite giving me the accuracy or the responsiveness that I want, I could switch it out for a different one. So flexibility, I think, is probably one of the biggest keys today that I, as a buyer, if I were to do it, or if you're looking at it, I would say that gives me the ability to change direction a little bit down the road if I need to. So some solutions today are very fixed and they don't give you many choices. They're very point solution oriented. Sprinklr is a good example where they have an open system. So a buyer of a Sprinklr system could use an out of the box example. They could develop their own and train their own, or they could use a number of different options that are in the market today, and they could change them down the road if they want to, and then use them for different use cases within the product. There's so much flexibility in there. It's really awesome to see. So that I think would probably be the biggest one if I were to choose one.
Last question, and this is the hard hitting question. This is what I enjoy asking a lot of our CX practitioners when they come on this show. Is it difficult for you to go into like a restaurant or retail experience and not analyze every customer experience or interaction that you're having with employees? Or like when you go into like your favorite coffee shop, is it just like a Terminator or like RoboCop readout in front of your eyes of like all of the customer experience rights and wrongs that are happening?
And go ask for the manager right away and say, hey, we need to talk.
Yes, right away. Right away. Bring them aside.
No, I look at it. It's a fun thing to do. I think you just have to be open and understand people are at different places in their maturity of their CX programs and understand, okay, well, these guys are only working on the survey data today, for example, or they were working in the unstructured, but they haven't really gotten a handle on it yet. Or I think that's the fun of it, is to say, you can't just force people into a different place where they are with their business. But you're right. You do look at it through the lenses of, but I think, I mentioned it, everybody does. If you have a good experience somewhere, you're a CX practitioner. You look for a good experience for yourself, right? For your family. And so you would like that in all aspects of what you do. And so maybe I know a little bit more about the technology behind the scenes, but I think everybody kind of understands, hey, I got a really good cup of coffee. The guy said hi to me. He knows my name, good experience, right? I like that. Let's have that again. I'll come back here tomorrow, right? So, but, maybe I know a little bit more about how that happened. Maybe he's got the little cheat sheet screen that says, oh, here comes Lou and he loves to have a latte, et cetera. So I think we'll see a lot more of that moving forward, which is pretty exciting. So, yeah.
Do you remember, just out of curiosity, do you remember the last survey that you actually filled out from a business? What was the last voice of the customer survey that you actually participated in? I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall when you did it.
So sure. I mean, the latest one I did was the Uber that I took to get to come here. So,
oh, nice.
Oh yeah. So that literally was the latest one that, and I try to, there is a lot to the term survey fatigue, right? Surveys are everywhere. They're pop-ups, they're emails, they're SMS text messages today. But as a practitioner, I know how valuable that information could be. So I may be a little different, and I try to do them as much as I can. But they do happen a lot. And, you do feel in some cases with brands that you pick one answer, now they want you to fill out 15 more. And it's like, well, where does that end? So
give them an inch and they take a mile.
Exactly. And they can think, this is all really good information, but that's a whole nother story of getting into the value parity. If I'm going to give you a lot of information, brand, you need to give me something back in return for it. And that's part of the whole practicing of the experience as well. But yeah, I try as much as I can. And I would suggest, if people can take the time, hopefully it's not too much time, but give the feedbacks to the brand. If they have a good CX program, they're listening to it, they're making use of it. Hopefully they'll close the loop with you and tell you thank you for the information back, and it'll all be good.
What about the star system? You just kind of
Hmm.
brought that to my mind.
Sure.
How impactful is, when you have when you finish your Uber ride, it's like whatever it is, 1 to 4, 1 to 5 stars.
Hmm.
Unless I've had like a really egregious like experience, which very rarely happens,
Right.
um, I always give them whatever the full star rating is.
Hmm.
Is that as impactful, those little moments? And is it also like it's either you got full stars or it doesn't, or it's a strike against you if you're the employee?
Yeah, I think you have to be aware, I would say maybe careful a little bit, but aware at least of there are different consumers that have different grade systems. Some people
Hmm.
never give a five, right? And some people love to give a five. So that's in there, and that's part of the bias of the data samples that you may be getting around the feedback on the surveys. I think every score is important, not only to the brand itself to tell them, how they're performing in that particular situation, but that feedback can go back to other consumers as well, obviously to the driver and to other drivers in the Uber example, so other people can understand, is this a good driver? Is this someone that I want to go with? Are they a four? Are they 4.5? Are they a five? And so I think that's an important component of it as well. But to your point, when you're not going to give as high a score, that often can be the most valuable to the brand to say, there may be others that aren't giving a good score at all. So when someone gives me a 3 or a 4, if I can get more information from them as to what exactly led to that score, now I have a real opportunity to improve my engagement, my experience with that service or the brand with that customer, and improve it a little bit more over time. So I think, it can go both ways. And I think the scores are an important place to start, but it's just the beginning. In and of itself, a star rating
Yeah,
doesn't really tell you much about what you can do. There's no actionable information necessarily under it. If you get a 3, no more information, then what are you going to do? You're
right.
going to say, okay, well, I have to wait for the next one, right? So
Yeah.
an interesting component around that too that I've heard, which I like, is I mentioned that, the response rate on surveys is relatively low, has been for some time because there is quite a few of them. But what that means is that if I'm getting a response rate of 5%, that means I'm getting an unresponse rate of 95%. And some call that the voice of the silent. And there are now
Mhm.
tools looking at how do I understand what they really are feeling and trying to evolve the data from those that do respond to give me a better picture of what the entire customer base platform is looking like. And there's some really interesting things going on in that area too.
Well, Lou, listen, I really appreciate you sitting down with us for the special analyst edition of CXWise. I know you've got a lot of other things to go to, so thank you so much for your wisdom, your insights, your expertise. You've made us all a little CX wiser today. So, Lou, thank you for what you do, and thank you for your time, my friend. I look forward to talking with you again.
My pleasure. Great to see you. Talk to you again soon. Take care now.
See you, Lou.
Bye bye.